say what you have written and what I have replied, and then what you have replied.
Okay. Today I said, good morning, Swami. Today slavery will end at 10:30 a.m. Indian time. Then Swami replied, why the slavery should begin in the first place? All slavery is your inner state. It's nothing to do with the outside. Then I replied, okay, so we'll not treat it as slavery.
Now you have to see the emphasis is always on the objective. In spite of and despite telling you so many times, you are still hanging on the objective. I didn't say anything about how you have to treat it. You are still focused on your work, your job, whatever you're doing on the outside. I am talking about your inner state. So as long as you go on thinking that just understanding things mentally or intellectually, or you are not even contemplating what to say about trying to see your conditioning. I was talking all about your insight, how you take things, but you are focused, concentrated on the outside. Will not treat as slavery. Important, your focus, your emphasis is on it. What I am saying is that see why you become a slave. It is not about one thing, your work. It is when the slavery is there, it will be there all the time, because the source of your slavery is within you. It is not in the outside. So you have to watch your mind. That becomes a slave. Why it has become a slave in the first place? Because this slavery is giving you a certain benefit. You have a vested interest in it. If you are not a slave, you will not be praised. If you are not a slave, you will not get a good salary. If you are not a slave, you will have a difficult life. If you are not a slave, then your life will be full of friction. No one will appreciate you, not even your parents, not even your friends. So you have chosen, though unconsciously, you have chosen it on your own, because that serves your interest. That helps you to become part of the machinery of the society. You become a spoke in the wheel. And you want to be a spoke in the wheel. That is how everywhere in the whole world people have become slaves. How the communists reduced people to slaves. Because we have fear and we have greed. How the Islamists, they make people into complete slave. It is just completely unimaginable. You have nothing, but you are clinging to it. You are praising it because you have the fear of death. You may be treated far worse than how animals are treated. But still, because you want to survive at any cost. So you cannot rebel, you cannot get out of that hell, that prison. Because someone getting food in that prison, and you are so afraid. There you have certain genuine reason also, because prison is very well devised, and the way Muslims are conditioned, they have been, all the religions condition you, but Islam has succeeded in the best possible way. No religion has succeeded because they leave no room for freedom. They have worked it so meticulously. So I don't know how they have developed it to such a perfection, but they have been very successful in this. And now I feel that it is all in the name of Allah and Muhammad, but what is the real motive behind is to be rich, be powerful, to grab all the money, that is, to grab all the land which belongs to other people, because you don't have any creativity. You don't have genuine way to earn money. So this is a shortcut. And this was happening from the time of Muhammad. He was also looting other tribes because that was the custom at that time. And certain portion will go to him, a very large portion. So very easy, very quickly you can become rich. If you are making real effort, then it will take so much time. Now the same business has been taken by the Saudi Arabic people who are dominating the religion. Makkah is the center of that, the whole business. So when so many people, it is one of your duties, one of the essential things that you have to go for Hajj. You have to go, I think, as many times as you can manage. So, and the whole thing is, I was just listening to a woman who has left Islam. Her name is Yasmin. She was from Egypt. And she was telling that we are so brainwashed from the very beginning that we never even think, we cannot, it is so perfectly we are conditioned that you never even think that this is something wrong. Islam for us has become like, it is like your identity. Whatever you do, you will still remain a woman. If you are a mother, you are a mother. So Islam is like that. You cannot leave it at all. So about everything there are rules. That how to, from the moment you wake up in the morning to your last moment when you go to sleep. And the other woman who was taking her interview, she said that even maybe they are managing your dream also, what you can dream, what you cannot dream. I don't, because she didn't say anything about that. But she said that about everything, that how to drink water. You are told about it, how to eat, how to go to toilet, how to go to bathroom. About everything you are told. And this is the only way you can do. When you are drinking water, you cannot take more than 3 sips at a time. And then you cannot breathe into the glass. When you are going to your bathroom or toilet, first is that you enter into it with your right feet. And then when you have to come back, then you have to use your left feet first. So you are being reduced to a robot. If you are from the very beginning, you are conditioned in this way, then all your intelligence, all your rebelliousness will be completely destroyed. You cannot, you will become like a soldiers in the army. They are trained from the very beginning, turn left, turn right. So it becomes part of their system. So when they are told to shoot people, there is no question within them whether this man has harmed him or not. That's why they can kill so easily. These are all ways to condition you. So when it is said that if you are using the wrong feet, then because devil is in the toilet, in the bathroom, so he can harm you. And whenever you are asking any question about Islam, it is the devil which has entered inside you, and he's working through you. So our whole story was really startling, that she got married to an Egyptian. Her mother was from Egypt. Not she, her mother got married. First marriage, her first marriage was to an Egyptian. But then later on they divorced because of many reasons. One of the reasons was he used to beat her, which is very normal. It is very legal in Islam. You have to beat your woman if she is not following you. And that was not the reason, but he used to beat her. But the reason was that they were living in, I think at that time, in California or somewhere. And she hated this culture, which she thought is totally against Islam. But for her husband, it was all right. So then separated, and she married someone else who was real fanatic. And then with that man, she went to Canada, in Vancouver. And she was living with her children, and then this man was not beating her, but this man was beating her children. So it was all right with her, that at least she was saved from that beating. Then maybe I think he was trying to abuse her also as she grew a little older. Sexually, he was trying to rape her, and maybe raped her also because she was not saying everything, whatever, very clearly. But I think he raped her, and then her mother wanted her to remain totally silent about it because she didn't want to that this one marriage turned into divorce. She didn't want this to turn into divorce, because in Islamic culture, if a woman is divorced, it is thought to be very bad, and that woman loses all respect. So this marriage, she didn't want it to turn into divorce. So she said to her, keep quiet. And before this man married her, they were living in some Muslim mosque kind of place, or where women are. And she became a kind of Islamic teacher. Then she wanted her to get married, and her daughter. And once this girl told in her school, to her school teacher, that they are treating her like this. She may have told about all those rapes which her husband was doing with her. So then the police came, and then the matter went into the court. But the judge there said that it is part of your culture. So I cannot do anything, because they are like in Canada and in all other Western countries. They don't want to interfere in Islamic tradition because they are afraid of it. So they are protective of their culture, but they cannot protect the individual. So Then she had passed her high school, so they went to Egypt as in holiday. And there, when she woke up one day, they had already left the place. And because her mother wanted her to, she thought that she is going astray, so she wanted her to be married to her cousin or some man. She didn't want, but her mother said that you need a man who can control you totally. Then only you will be cured of your disease of asking questions. So then she had to get married there. Is the sound still clear?
Yes, clear, Swami, clear.
So she had to get married, and then within a year she was pregnant. And this man, then I think she returned to Canada, because the whole story, it was very long. I didn't remember everything in the sequence. So she returned with him to Canada, I think. And there she was pregnant with another child. But then he used to beat her so much. Sometimes he will just, even she was pregnant, that he will kick her in such a way. Sometimes she had to fall down from staircase. And then that child was aborted. And she was blaming herself, that because he was in such a state that the child was not born. But later on she realized, because he used to beat her in such a way and he will kick her in the belly, so that must have been the reason. Then they were living with her mother, and then when her girl became 4 or 5 years old, or 3 or 4 years, he said that when we will go for her cleaning. And she didn't understand what he means. She thought that he want to take her into some kind of bathing or something. But then her mother said that no, she is very young at present. When she will get little older, then we will take her to Egypt. So it was a female khatna, female genital mutilation. So then she decided that now whatever has happened to me, I will never allow it to happen to my daughter. So at that time she was living with her mother, and her mother was Islamic teacher. So in the daytime she will be absent for 1 or 2 hours. So she thought this is the right time. I think it was because she was pregnant, so her husband said that you can stay at your mother's home. So that was the time when she got this chance to go out of home. And then she met a female lawyer, and she said that I have very little time, because if my mother comes to know, then I will be in great difficulty. So she said that she arranged for it that the husband will not be able to enter into her house anymore. So when she returned back, maybe after a few days, he was a very tall man, 6 foot 4 inch, black, dark. So he was shouting from the road that, "Give me my wife back." He was saying that this is like they treat you as your possession, that your thing has been taken away in an illegal manner. So you have to return it back to him. But then she realized now the law is already being applied, so he cannot enter into the house. But he could have met her outside if she is in the market. So she stopped going out of the home. Then she used to watch television, and then she saw, I forget his name, this man, I think it was Clooney or what was, a man who has a very, is a very rebellious kind of man. He has some kind of humorous show. I used to send you a few times. What was his name?
George Clooney.
George Clooney?
Is it George Clooney? American actor.
George Clooney. And then he has invited some neurologists or something. So they were talking about this, how these people turn into fanatic and many other things. So then she realized that these people, they are not even Muslims. And they are talking about me. Because they were talking about some Egyptian things. So then she decided that she will write a book on her whole story. And then because she knew that if she goes out of the home, then she can be killed. And so she was not going out of the home. But then after some time, because her husband was part of the Al-Qaeda. So he was caught in Egypt. And then they showed him, the police, that he is in jail in Egypt. So he cannot harm you anymore. Then some politician came to power who was very pro-fanatic Islamic people. So he released all those people. So then he escaped to Malaysia. And there also he did some terrorist thing. So there he was. And then this woman was asking why so then he when he was young, she asked, this woman asked that why these people are so unintelligent and so brainwashed that they want to die for Islam. They don't want to live, but they want to die. They are so ready to die. She said that this was Indian woman. So she said that in our country, they will talk about sacrificing themselves for Islam, but mostly they don't do it. They will fight with the army, and then when they know that they will be caught, then most of the time they surrender. And then they return back to society after their after serving some time in some kind of home where you are treated for your disease. I forget the word. So because he told about this man, her husband, he was born in a poor area. So in Egypt, she said that there are lots of level and strata in society. Poor people live in certain area. And then his father was an engineer, so he had more money, so he went to some good area, posh kind of area. But then the children in those areas will not give any attention to him because they could see that he cannot speak like them, and he looks like he has poor upbringing, so they will not mingle with him. And the girls will also not give attention. So he said that those people who want to use you, they want to utilize you for their jihadic purpose. They are looking in search for those kind of people who feel like segregated in society, who feel like they are mistreated. So then they contacted him and they said that, don't worry, this is nothing. When you die for Islam, you will become favorite of Allah and you will get everything which you cannot even imagine. And you don't care about these girls. You will get hoods there. So this way, when you are conditioned from the very beginning, then you don't have any question. So he was asking this woman that, the kind of criminal activities and violence and killing they do, don't they ever feel that they're doing something wrong? So she said that you are thinking in that way. They think they are the most chosen people. They are the holiest people. All others are infidels. All others are sinners. They are the one who are the right people. They are programmed, conditioned in this way, to think that only they have right to exist. All others should be killed because they are going against Allah and Muhammad. So but how strongly you are conditioned that you can destroy yourself, you can become a suicide bomber, and you think that you will go to some heaven and you will get 72 virgins there. But this makes it clear that a human being can be conditioned to do anything. You can be hypnotized to believe in anything. We think that we have a free will, but this is not there. Only when you become conscious, you can claim to be human being. If you are not conscious, then you are conditioned. And when you are conditioned, then you are a slave. Anyone can misuse you. Anyone can use you for anything. In Islam, this is the way the mother treats their children and father treats his son. Goes to extreme, but it is present in every family to some extent, to greater or lower extent, but it is everywhere there. So I was telling about her mother that then when she came out of this strong hypnosis of Islam, then she got money from the Canadian government, so she was studying in university. So one of her teacher was some Christian, I think. And when he saw her without hijab, then he realized that she can be told things. So he will tell her all the things, stupid thing in Islam, like whatever she didn't knew before. That if you, if the Jews hide behind some tree or some stone, then the stone will speak, or the tree will speak that this Jew is hiding behind it. So you can kill him. They will tell to the Muslim that you go and kill him, he is hiding behind me. Only one of the tree, I have forgotten, she has not also said, but I have read it somewhere, which tree is that it protects the Jews. So that tree is infidel, that tree is a sinner. So Muslims in the past, they used to destroy that tree. Even Muhammad did it. When he invaded one tribe, he destroyed all those trees. So, but the real thing is whatever they say is not actual. The real thing is that he wanted to destroy their economic power. So that tree was giving them economic strength. So he burned all those trees. So they are very meticulous about these things. So when she was finally more free from Islam, she said that it took slowly, it was not something like sudden thing. Slowly she was getting out of it. So then one day she thought that I cannot live any longer any dual life. I have to be what I am. So she thought that because her mother needed her to go to hospital. So she thought that I will go without hijab. So she went, and when her mother saw, she said that, so that means you have dropped Islam. She said, how I can drop? At that time also she used to think that Islam is just like your blood, it's your identity, you cannot drop it. I've just dropped hijab. The mother said that means you have dropped Islam. So to give birth to a infidel, to a kafir, is a great sin. So I will suffer in hell for it. I don't want to suffer in hell. So I will kill you. She realized that whatever her mother was saying was true, because this is how it happens in many families, that some girl will suddenly disappear and they will say that she has gone to some country in Morocco or Somalia or somewhere, but she will never be heard anymore. So she thought that now I have to get rid of all my family members. I have to escape from here. I have to cut off my relation with all my siblings and my mother. Otherwise, they can harm me and my daughter. Actually, her strength to leave Islam came from her daughter. When her husband, he said that he will, now his time has come to do this khatna. Then she decided that whatever has happened to me, I will not allow it to happen to my daughter. So then that was the thing that gave her the strength. So love is the real power. It gives you the strength to fight with all kind of devils. But she said that once I was out of it, then it was so difficult to survive, because in Islam, everything you are conditioned in every way. You are conditioned that you have to read in this way, you have to eat in this way. Everything is conditioned. And then once you are out of it, then the whole society becomes against you. And if even about things like as long as you belong to Islam, this whole society will help you in everything. Once you are out of it, they will all become enemies. So for some time, it was so difficult for her that she used to think whether I should go back again and get married to a person my mother wants me to get married. So but these are the people who are the real salt of the earth. They may not be so-called spiritualists, and I think it is when you suffer, when you have gone through hell, then only you finally get that strength. This is what Nietzsche said that only if you want to reach to the height of heaven, you have to go to the very depth of hell. Only a tree which root is very deep inside the earth can rise very high. So if you are escaping or if you want to get rid of suffering, then you cannot be liberated really. So what I was saying is that you should look inside where the slave is hiding within you, which is always ready to compromise, which is always ready to sell itself for comfort, which is always ready to turn to a robot. I'm not saying that you have to give up your job, but at least you should try to live from your inner center. And if you have to take some risk, you should be ready for it. So is it clear or not, whatever I said?
Yes, very clear, Swami. Excellent story, very clear.
If you want to see your conditioning, you have to see into the life of other people also. How, when they are conditioned, how they finally manage to get out of it.
Yes, Swami.
These people must be having tremendous strength inside, because once you are totally alone, these Muslims are so dangerous. Any day they can kill such people. That is what this woman was also saying. Madhu Keshwar is her name. That after this interview, I don't know whether both of us are going to survive or not. But freedom is even greater value than life itself. Because life without freedom, what meaning it has? Whenever we say that you are not the body, you are not the mind, that is indicating that you have something far higher than your physical form within you. That is your consciousness. That is the love, with the possibility of love within you. That is your energy. These are the things which are more subtle. These are the things which cannot be destroyed. So, animals have tremendous energy. The very word animal has come from a root anima or something, which means alive, being very vital, being full of energy. That's why they have tremendous energy. They are just energy. But far higher than that, the highest thing is to be conscious. When you are just conscious of objective thing, then your consciousness is outgoing. And when you are conscious of the consciousness itself, then it is called awareness. So without being aware, you have missed the opportunity to be human. Without knowing what love is, you have not known what life is. You can see that this blind swimmer and this Azamul Islam, the kickboxer, these you may not have to see the whole thing because it is in mostly I think it is in Hindi. So that is what I like about Arnab is that his emotion is still healthy. It's not like most of the journalists, they become like brutes. They don't get involved in anything emotionally. And this is what happens to lawyers and judges also. They think this is something very high. You can go beyond your emotion by being more conscious. But if you have killed your emotion, then you have not gone beyond it, you have gone below it. Because I remember one book which I said few days back. I feel maybe it is that book. Now, because I talked about feeling and you were talking about you feel something. So I read a news about a man, a Japanese boy, who had perhaps some disease from the childhood that he was very obsessed with sex, and also he wanted to eat the thigh of the woman. He is one of the most famous cannibals. So he had this desire, but it was not being fulfilled. He was from a very rich family. And one day, he entered into the apartment of some girl whom he liked. He thought that this will be the right girl for me. So before he was going to eat her thigh, she woke up. Then she started shouting. And then the police was called. And they felt that they didn't, no one understood that what was his real purpose, but they thought that he has entered to kill her. So maybe he had a knife or something. So he was in jail, but because he was from a rich family, so they managed best judges, best lawyers. So he came out very easily because nothing could be proved in the court. Then he studied, and then his desires still remained unfulfilled. Then he went to study in France. He was doing his PhD. And then he was a small man because of certain disease. 5 feet tall, something like that. But he had a friend, almost a girlfriend. So she started liking him. She was a tall girl, and he thought that this girl I will be good for him. So one day he invited her for translating some poetry. So she came. She had no doubt about him. She came. Then while she was translating the poetry, she was totally engrossed in it. He had a pistol or a revolver. He killed her and had a dead body. And then the first thing he did was to eat her face. I think first he ate her breast, and then her face, then her thighs, then he kept the remaining things in the fridge, and slowly he ate most of the things. Then the remaining part he packed in the bag and he threw somewhere not very far near the place. But finally he was caught. I saw him while he was going to throw it, and they had suspicion. So then they told him to open the bag. Then they saw, then they came to his home. They was totally terrified, the whole scene. Then he went to the jail, and then this was international news. It reached to Japan also. And then his parents came with a big lawyer. So, but he was sentenced to jail. But after some year, maybe 2-4 years, something, they said that the people in Japan, they said that we cannot keep such people in our midst. So then he was sent to Japan and was put in jail there. So I was saying to you, I told the whole story because you were telling that this is my feeling. What you were talking about, what was your feeling on that day? When I said how you know it is your feeling or your thinking?
I said that because it was not a thought.
What was it?
It was just
I forgot what.
And I
No, what?
think I said an urge in us to do something.
What urge? To do what? You said something. What was the thing? I forgot that. What was the urge to do?
I don't remember, Hami.
You were so emphatic on that day. This was my feeling. And you can't even remember your feeling. So that's why I told the whole story. That was his feeling also. So even feeling cannot be relied upon. Only when you are awake, you are conscious, then only you will not do wrong things, which otherwise you are, in the name of thinking, feeling, you can do anything. I said on that day, maybe you have read somewhere, yes, I've just forgotten what. I've answered the question also, but I said that if it was really your feeling, you could not have forgotten, because feeling comes from very your real depth. So we are all confused about what is our thinking, what is our feeling. That is what Gurdjieff used to say. All our centers have become confused. The center which should be our sex center is not there, it is in our mind. In the same way, all our centers are confused. Now you have to see whatever you say is your feeling, is it feeling or thinking? That is what I said on that day, how you know that it is your feeling. You were saying it was an urge, it was a feeling, and how you have forgotten it.
Was it? I think that question was when I was asking about rebelliousness. Is it, Swami? Was it that day?
Yeah.
Rebelliousness. Then you asked me what is rebellion, right? Then I say like an urge to do something. Is it?